Welcome to the Phoenix Prosperity Podcast, where wealth meets legacy. Join your host, Tim Fergestad, as we explore the journeys of Phoenix's finest to success and beyond.
Hello, this is Tim Fergestad. Thank you for joining us. Today, I'm very pleased to have Steve Pugsley with me here, founder of Pugsley Sons. He spent decades helping families safeguard and grow their wealth with physical gold and silver, assets that have outlasted empires, currencies, and entire financial systems. We'll explore his unique focus and background, his focus on education first, and how precious metals fit into modern wealth building. I don't have a lot of alternative asset guests on the show, so I'm super excited. Thank you. Welcome to the show, Steve.
Excellent, Tim, and thank you so much for the kind and warm welcome. I thought maybe what I do is just take a couple of minutes in the beginning here, just to pass on a little bit of my background, because it really does segue into, why we're so unique in the industry.
Please, and it's super interesting.
Yeah. So I come from, which makes me very unique in the industry of gold and silver. I actually come from a traditional, financial background. I was senior partner in a firm in Southern Oregon, born and raised in the Bay Area out of California, and as we say, a great place to be from. In Oregon, senior partner with a firm, we did financial advising, tax planning, and business development. So we were a traditional white glove niche financial company. There were 5 of us total in the organization, and the founder was just this brilliant guy who kind of took me under his wing for 25 years. And so what we were unique in is that, yes, we did all the standard advising, we did all the tax planning. I headed up all business development. So I had a very, unique and exciting 25 years because I focused on private equity venture capital for small startups. A fancy way back in the day of saying how to tax plan, people's tax debt. And so
Sure.
It was very unique. Everything's different. Did like about 29 startups in 25 years. On the financial side, the founder, if you came under our advisement in the firm, you had to have a portion, a percentage of your wealth or portfolio sitting in physical gold and silver. So he was very unique in that point. So I was for 25 years, I personally and, professionally sought work, got to work with my clients and see it. My son hit a few home runs in the business, decided to semi-retire. We bought a piece of property in Oregon and created our own 80-acre vineyard. At about that time, going back when Oregon was getting a little weird, they're burning down, the federal buildings up in Portland, and about eight years ago, my son decided that he wanted to go to ASU School of Business. And we just decided that, we would follow him here. And so since that time, I've actually run into a lot of people. That's not as uncommon as I thought it might be. Parents following their kids, to the Valley of the Sun. It took a little while to liquidate everything that comes with a farm. Woke up one day and, just said, man, I've worked my butt off since I was 12 years old, going all the way back to the paper route. This whole retirement thing isn't working at all, which kind of brings us to today. What am I going to do? And I thought, those hundreds, if not thousands of clients we advised, all those countless startups that we did, the one thing that never let a client down 100% of the time was gold and silver. And so I thought what I would do is we founded Pugsley Sons with a focus on advising our clients about all. And I focus on the word all because a lot of people, everybody knows the gold standard, everybody knows what gold and silver is, but I'm shocked, whether it's at an entry level or at the highest level, estate planning attorneys, financial advisors, very few people know everything there is to know about gold and silver. So what unique now compared to like the mission, if you may, for lack of a better term, at the age of 64, the mission is to advise people. Truly don't make a dime until if someone chooses to trade with us. But whereas with the firm, hey, you weren't accredited, you didn't have $1 million, we didn't talk to you.
Right.
With Pugsley Sons, we talk to everyone because our belief system is everyone should have some. And we find through the education process, I believe that many people in your network, after this quick conversation we have today, somewhere through this process, they will say, wow, I didn't know that. And then that's what we're all about now. And so that kind of
Okay.
brings us to today, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's great. Now I'm eager to dive in, but first I want to fill in a couple gaps. Um, how was growing grapes?
So my way, so I'll step one step backwards before I answer that question, so it makes more sense. I was born and raised in the middle of San Jose, California. I mean,
Okay.
I was a city boy. I mean, I never even grew a tomato plant. I mean, that's so
Okay.
one huge tax shelter that we had back in the day. Things have changed now because the tax code is really evolved and changed so much. Back in the day, we had all our clients in farming. It was a huge, huge tax shelter.
Right.
And so through that process, I kind of saw the benefits of being able to, to shelter capital gains through the farm. So that's why I did it. But by the way, I mean, I bought my own equipment. I hired a very small crew, and the piece of ground was 100-year-old, 80-acre, I'm sorry, 100-year-old, 80-acre hay farm. We ripped out the hay and put grapes in. So it was very interesting, and a lot of benefit. But here's the deal. Farming is a lot of hard work, to
Hmm.
answer your question. It's a lot of hard work. It's not for the faint of heart. As the grapes were coming in, one day we were leaving for the holidays to go from Oregon back to San Jose. And I remember mentioning our road was about a quarter mile out, from our house out to the highway. I remember mentioning to my wife, hey, check out the deer. They're just out there kind of grazing around. And we came back a week later and there was nothing left.
Oh, wow.
Nothing. So, we lost about 80 grand right there off of the grow, the plant. And then we had to put up $100,000 worth of fencing. So that's what I mean by, not for the faint of heart. So, yeah.
Right, right. Ouch. And what varietal and how
It
did
was
it do?
so Pino only because that's
Okay.
kind of what Southern Oregon became known for. I mean, we had
Okay.
literally
Does well
they were
there.
not only competing but actually winning above and beyond some California varietals. So we
Okay.
did not get into the bottling side of it as well. We
Okay.
grew and then supplied our grapes.
Okay.
Most of it actually went to California, which is an ultimate compliment, right? So
Okay. Okay. Cool. Very cool.
yeah.
And we sort of missed over another very interesting aspect to your life is a lot of motorcycle racing.
Hey, great. Well, thanks for remembering when we first met. So, I was born and raised in a very unique household by 1960s standards, not by today's. My mom was the professional, and my dad was a 40-year auto mechanic who owned his own auto repair shop. So I
Okay.
came out of high school, moving on to secondary education, already with a certified journeyman card, in my
Oh,
pocket,
nice.
being around my dad. So I dabbled between. And by the way, my love is blue collar. I mean, the white collar always paid the bills better, but I love white blue collar. So having that background, I got involved in racing. Someone took me under their wing, paid for me to get my license. And if anybody's familiar with MotoGP, that's motorcycle road racing, the guys that get on road tracks and drag knees with leather. I did that
Hmm.
professionally for 25 years. So
Wow.
been on the high banks of Daytona. Laguna Seca was my home track for years, and track champion up in Portland. So I love speed, and I'm getting excited right now talking about it. I'm probably 25 years removed from it, but yeah, yeah, a lot of pain, to go along with it, a lot of crashing, but yeah, great times, great times.
Very cool. Very cool. That's fun. That's fun. Um, do you still ride?
I still ride now that we've just relocated in the valley from all the way west to all the way east. So, like, we're now within a few miles, if anyone's familiar on the call today, the Valley of the Sun, but the Superstition Mountains
Hmm.
and Canyon Lakes and all up into that region. I'll probably start riding again because now I don't have to kill myself getting there,
Right.
because on the highways, as you probably know, in Phoenix, it's just it really is. It's suicidal to get on a street bike. But now I don't have to get on all the highway systems. I'll probably start riding again a little bit.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So let's talk some shop. All
Yeah.
right.
Awesome. Good
All
man.
right. So what are common misconceptions about But well, wait, before we get into gold and silver specifically, do you also do other minerals, right? Because that's been a bigger interest for some people nowadays, like
Actually, it's a
lithium.
great
Lithium.
question. We don't. We stay strictly and
Okay.
solely with gold and silver.
Okay.
That doesn't mean that palladium and other precious metals, aren't viable. We stay in, and on that, probably a good time to mention before we kind of get into a little bit of details on it. We stay in a very narrow lane. I mean, our narrow lane is investment grade, physical portfolio protection. So what we look to do is we look to work with people to not only help them grow their wealth, but protect their portfolio. So we don't deal with any of the collectible stuff. Sometimes we can even be adamantly against it because we think the premiums are inflated and there's
Right.
so much subjective value, right? So we
Right.
stay in a very narrow lane of investment grade where 100% objective. The value
Okay.
is based on what the market, no different than any other stock or security, that someone might invest in. So
Okay.
that's kind of
Okay.
where
Oh, okay. Good clarification. Thank you, Steve.
yeah,
Okay. So
great
what are
question.
some of the misconceptions that and limiting beliefs people have when they come into the space that you hurdles that they need to address?
And I like to start off with, and I'll just go over it real quick. We'll stay at 30,000 feet in consideration of everybody's time today. But, not so much a misconception, but I think what people don't understand, they don't understand what is so unique about gold and silver. And there's a
Okay.
lot of different reasons. Listen, most of the financial world, and I'll start out real quick. I'll go back, start out with a statistic that everybody might find very interesting. So think about this. Less than 1%, so less than 1% of the national population hold any significant amount of gold or silver. And what I mean by, significant amount, I mean investment grade, not jewelry and that type of stuff. But
Okay.
yet, but yet over 70% of the one percenters, so 70% of your wealthy class hold
Right.
significant amounts of gold and silver.
Okay.
And so what we find is they're educated about it, they understand it, they've usually been raised around it, and so they understand all the values. So what we like to do is, what I'll just jump into right now is, what do they know to be true, right? That
Right.
nobody else knows to be true. Because by the way, as you know, and everybody who might listen to this, doesn't matter whether you're wealthy, poor, or indifferent. A percent is a percent. And having a percentage of your wealth sitting in gold and silver then gives you the same benefit, that the rest of the investment crew knows. So stability is a big one. And yeah, it sounds, pretty obvious, but think about it. Nothing has ever been, when we talk about an appreciating asset, nothing has ever been as stable as gold and silver. The Roman Empire was founded on it. This great country was founded on it. And long after anybody hearing my words today, long after they're gone, gold and silver will still be around as real money. And no matter, and by the way, I'm a proponent of the science of finance because all wealth is still created here in the mind. And I happen to believe that. But all wealth in this world, all wealth is still backed up by gold and silver. And so people need to understand that that benefit of real money will never go away. So stability is a big one. Instant liquidity. People don't, people say, hey, I hold this gold. What do I
Mhm.
do with it? What can I
Right.
do with it? Well, what's unique about gold and silver, you can go to any reputable gold or silver dealer in the world. And based on the type of gold and silver, and that's what we'll talk about briefly, is why we
Okay.
advise people to be in certain types of gold and silver. You could show that to any bullion dealer, they'll look at it and they'll say, it's worth this much today. This is what it's trading at. And we'll give you American dollars, wherever you're at in the world for that today. But more importantly, the liquidity side and what type of gold and silver, if you're holding what I told you to trade in, the next question will be, which is just as important, is do you have any more? And so that's the benefit really of gold and silver. There's a lot of different ways to liquidate different investments, but nothing can you really just say instantaneously within minutes. I'm going to only peel back a certain amount because of whatever my need is today and sell it back, to the market. So that's a very unique thing, a hedge against inflation. Now, you think about this, since the American dollar went up to gold silver in 1972, And there's a lot of history behind that. People, wrong Nixon, for taking us off the gold standard. A lot of people don't do their history. We don't have the time here today, but if you care to look it up, there was a good reason why he took it off, because there was a run on our publicly held gold from mainly France, all their goldbacks getting traded in. So he originally, gave the finger, if you may, to Europe by taking us off the gold standard. The problem was founded in a good idea, most government. From there, they literally just got addicted to the printing press and really the development of a fiat currency, and the rest is history. But more importantly, the day we did that, we created inflation within our currency, right? And so think about this. Since we've gone off that gold standard, our currency has been devalued somewhere between 500 and 700% of its value.
And continues to be with quantitative easing and all that. Yes.
Yeah. And you're there. And so most of us know. So that's, and people ask, well, how much has gold and silver gone up? And this is why I use an example of what's unique about gold and silver, a hedge against inflation. Gold and silver over the last 20 years have gone up a little over 550%. See the correlation between, because it's real money. And so it stays up with, and at times outpaces, which it's doing this year. It's a unique cycle this year, but outpaces inflation. Very, very few investments, as we say, adjusted after inflation. Most people don't talk about that because most investments don't keep up with it. Gold and silver does. Diversification, we won't spend much time on that, but what I will tell you this is everybody preaches it. And I agree that, people's retirement accounts should be diversified, right? But what people don't understand is potential. Good business people plan for the worst, hope for the best. That's a great philosophy, no matter what your profession is. And if you look at the worst case scenario, if there was a correction, if the dollar collapsed, it's happened before. I hope it never happens again, but it could. The point is that then how diversified is your retirement account if it's sitting completely in the market?
Right.
And that paper starts to be devalued. So I tell people, you might have a diversified retirement account, but it's not that diversified. People should consider a percentage of their retirement sitting in gold and silver, because then it's a physical, tangible investment. That worst case scenario can be grabbed, put in one's hand, and become instant liquid and everything else we've talked about. So diversity, so it's a unique. Everyone understands diversification, but people don't understand how diversified gold and silver truly is if you were to add it, to being part of your wealth strategy. The next two I find are the most unique. Okay. And I have found that they've become more front and center since COVID. I mean, I've been doing this for almost 30 years now. Saw a huge change in COVID. By the way, I don't care whether you're left, right, or indifferent. And it doesn't matter to me what lens you might look through. I think most honest people, when they were in the middle of that scenario, thought, you know what, freedom and liberty are changing a little bit. Something's happening here that, might be over the top. And is there anything, that I can hold of value that might protect me against that? And so the next two things is what we saw. So gold and silver are the only two appreciating asset classes left in the world today that have no counterparty risk. And it's when I say that to people, and I'll define no counterparty risk, of course, but when I say that to people who understand what that means, their eyes just always light up. No counterparty risk, as an example, would be sure cash has no counterparty risk, right? If you chose to, and I don't know why you would, but if you chose to have $1 million worth of $100 bills sitting in your safe today, right? Mm-hmm. You would not have to report that. Cash has no counterparty risk. Gold and silver is the only appreciating asset you can hold as much as you want. A little bit, a lot, in the middle, and never legally, emphasis on the word legally, never legally have to report it. And so most people, smart money people, say, wow, what would it be like? By the way, if you're a client or a partner with you and you're in an investment strategy, if you own a home, if you have a good retirement, you have a couple of nice cars, all of these things, that is defined as an accumulation of wealth. all of it has a number attached to it. All of it has been reported. And by the way, if you are in that boat, you need a good estate planning attorney. You need a good trust. You need a good accountant, right? You need a great financial advisor. And if you don't have one, I'm happy to refer one to you because I'm a proponent of all of that. But what if you had something of wealth that you literally, when it came time, no one else knew you had it? And so think about all the challenges that you've maybe been through in your life to have had something of value, that the old saying is true. If they don't have it, you can't take it. So no counterparty risk is huge. And then the last one that I've seen become more and more popular is the legacy move. Again, back to what we all discussed in of the other points here, is that all of that stuff's important and have that trust. But what if you also had something that grew and its wealth grew, and because it had no counterparty risk, when you chose, right, nobody gets out alive, as we say.
Right.
The only thing I can guarantee everybody today is that you just split it across the table. And so these are becoming, those last two unique propositions about gold and silver, I see coming to the forefront as time goes on. So that's really what I would tell people, what's very, very unique, as far as gold and silver are concerned.
Okay, there's some important factors too in this current socioeconomic climate. Good point, Steve. Thank you. So how do people normally get into gold and silver, and how does it work? What's the process?
So great question, great question. So logistically, as we say, how does someone acquire it? And by the way, my background was the science of finance, right? At this stage of my life, I choose to be in the simplest form of finance. Gold and silver has been around forever, and it just isn't complicated, at all. There's two ways to acquire it. Obviously, just buy outright and hold it, right? Your after-tax dollars. Here's the second way, and that's just a matter of getting in contact with me. We lock in prices. A lock-in, quick definition, a lock-in means because it's a traded commodity, it's going up and down, even though it's a stable investment. This last year has been pretty unstable, significantly, gone up. And so I lock in clients. We have a bond together that guarantees that the price won't go up while we are getting together to make the delivery and for them to fund. So that's one way of doing it. The other way, most people are just not familiar with this. I've become more and more of a fan as I find that less and less people, have liquidity and money just sitting around, discretionary income, whereas a lot of people, have a lot tied up in their retirement account. A self-directed fund is a technical term recognized by the IRS, which enables a person to choose whatever amount they want from their current retirement account, whether it's a 401k or an IRA, and roll over into physical metal, right? So gold and silver. The huge benefit to that is it's all pre-tax. It's no different. The structure is absolutely no different than any security or bond you would currently hold in that retirement account. The only difference is now part of your wealth, part of your retirement pre-tax is invested in physical gold and silver that you have physically. It just has to be vaulted. The IRS will say, we will let you invest in that. It just has to sit in a vault, so it can't be within arm's length. And then when you choose to start to peel it back, turn it back into liquidity, no different than you would anything else sitting in your retirement account.
Right.
You pay your fair share then. And so we're finding self-directed funds becoming over the last 5 to 10 years more popular than they've ever been. And what's unique about us in the industry, and by the way, I'll give all your listeners a quick tip. Hopefully you might be interested in talking to me, but if you go anywhere else, it's still a free country. Here's the tip of the day when it comes to self-directed funds. If the person talking to you is supplying the gold and silver to the established fund, is also the fund manager of that fund, and is also the vaulting service that holds it. What I've just said is prevalent in the industry. There's nothing fraudulent about that. I just happen to find that it's very unethical, because the recommendations of the fund might be skewed because now they're getting a percentage from that. And
Right.
then the validity of the vaulting service might be skewed as well. So we take
Sure.
nothing. We have nothing to do with that. So when we advise the client on which vault they use in the country and what self-directed fund manager use, it's because we vetted them and we find them to be the absolute best, not because we're getting, 1.5 points back, from the deal.
Right.
So that's a
Okay.
tip for
Okay.
everybody today.
Okay, good. I'd like to go back to and talk a little bit about the arm's length issue because, yeah, if I want to go buy some gold, I can go get them physically, bring them home, put them somewhere safe. But just like with real estate, if you're using retirement funds, I can't go buy a house from my retirement fund and then live in it or rent it out to my friends or family. And so there's a similar sort of arm's length restriction there. So you can buy it through a broker and they store it through your custodian for your retirement plan somewhere else. You don't get to go roll around in it or anything.
Right. You can. You can go touch it
You
all
can
you
go feel
want. It
it.
just has to stay in the vault, right?
Go wave to it in the vault. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. Uh, so it's still it the self-directed fund is not as technical as some of the property stuff, right? Because the property still, if you do, by the way, many of the listeners today, if they do investment properties, might already be familiar with self-directed fund because self-directed funds are very popular, for investment properties, right? But it has to be
Hmm.
fit certain types of property
Yep.
and it has to be 100% investment. With the gold and silver, the self-directed fund is just a vehicle for your retirement dollars.
Right.
Okay. And then it is actually physical gold and silver. Really, the only difference is, other than some paperwork and reporting, like you would on all of your other retirement, it just has to be vaulted in an accredited vaulting service. But you can go see it. Here's what I pass on to my clients. Again, unique. I tell people this is why you need to be diversified. Let's just play a hypothetical scenario where whether it was, national or worldly or personal, yeah, there's a crisis and something's happening, to the retirement. Doesn't matter to me what the scenario would be. If that were regrettably, to happen, those are scenarios that you find yourself in. Who cares if there's prepayment penalties and there's all this other stuff that you would have to deal with? As the paper side is being devalued, you have something sitting in your retirement that has come to you pre-tax that is sitting physical where you can go grab it and you have it and you can now live and do things that come with the benefit of having that real value rather than a paper value. And then, of course, you pay the keeper, you deal with that all later. But the point is, that isn't that the true benefit of diversification is a scenario that you hope never happens that potentially could happen. And so
Right.
that's a big benefit to a portfolio protection.
Okay. Can you talk real quick about sort of the range of market cycles between traditional stocks and gold?
Yeah, so here's on an average, we got anywhere, we're right around, we float around that 8% mark, annually until we have and real quick, let me back up on that. Here's what I tell all of my clients in the beginning, and we discussed this. By the way, one thing hopefully everybody should recognize is we haven't talked one bit about how much gold and silver have gone up in value. I don't focus on that because I want my clients to trade and acquire gold and silver for the guaranteed side. The guarantees are what we just talked about, right? The hedge, the stabilization, the liquidity, no counterparty risk, the legacy move. That's the guaranteed side. Gold has done that forever and will continue to do it. It is an appreciating asset class and it's cyclical like any others. There are times that it, significantly can go up in value. Gold right now, we're coming off of a 10% pullback. Even with that 10% pullback, gold and silver, it's now climbed almost 8 points of that back. Gold was up over 50% 10 months into the year, and silver was up to almost 61%. Now think about that. If And
Right.
here's what I want everybody to think about. Any other investment in this world, if it had gone up in value that much, You would be bombarded with it, and yet almost no one knows. And so my question is not as significant as the value it went up. Why doesn't anybody know that? I always open up when I'm in front of financial professionals. I ask that question.
Right.
And if they're honest, most of them know that. And yet they're in charge of people's portfolios and wealth. No one knows it because remember, gold and silver is real money. And if it's real money, it is what? The opposite of inflation. Right? And inflation is what? Inflation is man-made. There is nothing organic or natural about inflation. And so most talking points, whether it be media or whether it be administrations, don't say much about gold and silver when it's on a run up. Because if it's on a run up, smart people go, well, what's going wrong elsewhere if it's real money? And usually inflation is the killer. But that's really so the last year, I don't talk about it because I don't want people to think that that's what gold and silver do. That doesn't take away
last
though,
2 years or something, right? It's
the last 2 years. It's been up significantly.
It's been on a tear.
The last
Right?
10 months though, it's just unreal.
Right.
I mean, it has been unreal.
Gold anyway has over doubled, right?
Gold is over doubled, and silver, from a percentage point of view, has actually outpaced gold. Right. So.
Really? Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so, people, and by the way, I'm a big gold guy. And for 28 of 38 years, we were 100% gold, which the term in the industry is a gold bug, right? 100% gold. The last 2 years, we've almost done a reversal. People should consider the benefit, of silver because there's been a huge change. And silver currently, here's another tip for everybody. Silver is drastically undervalued today, drastically. Historically, silver will trade at about a 50-to-1 ratio, 50 ounces of silver to 1 ounce of gold. Right now, It's floating at, right around between 85 and 90%. Right? And so the point is, just historically, that's 30 to 40 points sitting on the table. Now, factor in electric vehicles, battery technology, solar panels, because silver has a significant industrial component to it. And there are storages, it still comes out of the ground, right? And availability and inventory is at record lows. I'll pass on to anybody who wants to do a little bit of homework. About a month ago, you'd have to dig to find this, but about a month ago, COMEX is New York, where we physically trade on the market. Obviously, London. London's still the center of pound sterling, right? Of silver. We were flying, airlifting silver from the COMEX in New York to London because London could not meet its contractual agreements. That tells you how limited the supply of silver is.
Right.
And so we happen to believe that silver has very, very long legs. And historically, it's always the lagger. Father Gold always leads and silver always follows. So this is what we watch and what we pass on to our clients, because the advice is free and we like everybody to be educated.
Okay. Very cool. Thank you for that, Steve. Now, here's a reflection question as we sort of wrap up the interview. What do you wish you knew sooner about building wealth and success earlier in your career?
By the way, I don't want to sound, like a broken record, but, it's no different than what everybody else says. And I would pass
I wish I would have
this on
started
now.
sooner.
Well, not only started sooner, but, you and I listen to the graybeards. I always had, people that, were mentors and they made a huge difference. I just wish I listened to them more. And let me finish with this. And I pass this on to anybody who's listening. It's an old school term. We call it bright eye. There was a day in my life I was a bright eye. That's a young person coming into the professional world. And I had people that took me under my wing that made a huge difference. I mentor young professionals, and I'm not offended if they don't think I can bring any value to them. I'm not offended at all. But the ones that take me up on my pledge, I'm more than happy to do whatever I can based on the amount of water that went under my bridge, over the last 55 years to pass on to them. And I would just take anybody within earshot, if you're around smart people and they're willing School only teaches you how to learn. It doesn't teach you anything more than that, right? And it's huge. And that's what I did it. It wasn't like I was, blind and deaf to it, but I wish I did it more. Absolutely.
Okay. Good one, Steve. Thank you. Now, if
Yeah.
people would like to connect with you and learn more, where can they go? What should they do?
Yeah, so just two quick things, and I'll be the guy to, answer it. Pugsley and Sons. I'll just pass on the phone number if I can real quick.
Yep.
It's 541-292-6933. And then just as easy, you can go to our website, which is real easy, PugsleyandSons.com, and the and is spelled out A-N-D. So PugsleyandSons.com. And here's what you're going to find if you go on your website, and there's a reason our website. You will not be able to buy anything. And by the way, you can't even buy from us until we get a chance to sit down and have a confidential conversation about gold and silver, answer all your questions. And that's what makes us very unique. Everyone in our industry pushes hard on the sell. It's all about fear. The dollar's going to tank, the brick nations, on and on and on and on. We come at it a little bit differently. Let's educate you about gold and silver. If you then choose to trade with us, then of course we're happy to do that.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Steve. That's good stuff. Now, with that, I'm looking forward to learning more and probably having you back on sometime if you're up for it, and we can dive into some more details on some of this stuff and the tools and structuring. If you're up for it sometime, Steve.
I would look forward to it, and
right.
And just let me pass on to everybody. This gentleman running this is a great man. I'm getting to know him, and look forward to a mutually beneficial relationship with you as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Steve. Well, thank you everyone for listening and watching. Thank you again, Steve Pugsley, for joining me today, and appreciate you sharing your insights into the gold and silver industry and your background and your story. Thank you.
Inspired by our guests? Visit PhoenixProsperityPodcast.com/guest and join us on the show and share your success story with Tim. The spotlight awaits.